What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back inside the UC Health Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. Team reporter and host Sydney Jones here. And coming up on today's episode, Denver Gazette's George Stoia joins the show. He'll give insight and analysis surrounding the team as the Broncos are back from their bye week and look ahead to face the Tennessee Titans on Sunday. All that and more on tonight's episode. Here at the UC Health Training Center, the players had the day off, so there was no practice today. But we heard from head coach Nathaniel Hackett and safety Justin Simmons yesterday as the team returned from their bye week. Coach Hackett discussed his message to the team following that Week 9 bye.
It's a new season, 9 games. Everything's ahead of us. In this league, to be able to get to where you want to go, you have to win a bunch of games in a row. Whether it's in the beginning, whether it's in the end, to put yourself in position to get to the playoffs, you got to win, and you got to win a bunch of them. And we have 9 games available to us. So I think it's about what can you do individually to make yourself better, to get us those 1 or 2 plays. Because we've been in so many games, and it was a great start this past game versus Jacksonville. You know, we had a couple opportunities. Guys made some big plays, and we need to build off that, both offense and defense and special teams. So I think it's about what we can do as an individual and then as a unit, as a team, because we've got 9 games left. Big season, long season ahead. And after reflecting on the first half of the Broncos season, this coaching staff is excited for the second half and having a normal schedule. We were talking about that as a staff today. I mean, just even this week, to be able to have a normal week is going to be something we're very grateful for. To get into that rhythm, these last 9 games, all Sunday games, is going to be great. And then from the standpoint of a bye week, you do have to re-energize yourself. We've got a 9-game push ahead of us. You know, all the guys a lot of them are fathers and husbands, and it was great for me to be able to get to know my kids again after being away, especially with this unique schedule. But yeah, we got away for a little bit, got to go up in the mountains, which was amazing, staying here in Colorado, and absolutely loved it. The kids had a great time, and now we're back to work. So it was kind of, hi, I'm your dad, and then, all right, I'm gone. See you in 9 weeks.
Despite entering the second half of the season sitting at 3-5, safety Justin Simmons believes in this team and details how they can be better, specifically on defense.
Yeah, no, I 100% believe, we can be better for sure. I know there's been some games where surface level, it may have seemed like, things were great, but we go back and we watch the film and we go in depth about, the intricacies of the game plan and what we should have called and how we should have executed. And it may not always show up on the stat sheet in terms of like a big play, but maybe they got a first down and that kept the drive alive to lead for them to kick a field goal, the opposing team. And, the field goal was the difference maker at the end of the game. You look at little things like that from at least from our defensive perspective, and look at some communication failures. Why did they happen? How did they happen? Those are things that are all correctable. And when we're on top of it, we've seen to the first half of the season that, we can be a really, really, really good defense, the best in the league. But when we have those mishaps, that's where some of those things can fall out of line. So for us, it's just focusing on the details of our preparation, our operation, and just having that move forward, be as sharp as it can be.
Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio is Denver Gazette's Broncos beat writer, George Stoia. George, appreciate you joining me on the podcast today.
Sydney, I'm honored. I know I wasn't the first guest you ever had on here.
The best guest, though.
Exactly. I am going to be the best guest that you've ever had on here, but it's great to be on here coming off a bye week. I know we're well rested. Well, maybe not you.
We're still working on it.
You went traveling during the bye week, yes. But I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you here. George, you mentioned the Week 9 bye. Were you able to enjoy yourself a little bit, get some time off?
Yeah, I got to go see some family back in Oklahoma. I actually I saw Delarian Turner-Yell and Nick Benito were both in Oklahoma for the Oklahoma game, which I was also there for. Did you go to the game? Yes, and so I saw them briefly. But, I got some time off, got to see some family. I think it was really good. It always falls. It seems like the bye week always falls like the perfect spot.
Right smack in the middle of the season.
Right. And so I feel like, I know for me personally, it was great. I'm sure for the players, obviously a lot of injuries going on. Yeah. And also just, coming off of a win, I think that it was a good week of rest. I mean, we got to talk to a few of them yesterday on Monday. And it just sounds like they're kind of re-energized, ready to go for the back half here.
Yeah, it certainly helped coming off that win in London. I know you were in London too. Did you enjoy your time out there?
It was awesome. I mean,
it was great. Wembley was really cool.
It was amazing. Like we sat outside for the game, which was weird. Like the press box was outside.
It was weird. Yeah.
I was a little cold, but like other than that, like the atmosphere was awesome. Obviously the sightseeing and all that during the week was really cool. I mean, the Broncos practicing, where Winston Churchill went to high school. Like, there was just a lot of history there that was really cool to be a part of.
I'm glad you got some time off during the bye week, George. I know it was kind of a busy bye week here at the UCL Training Center with, the Bradley Chubb trade, acquiring running back Chase Edmonds and outside linebacker Jacob Martin. George, overall, what did you think about that trade?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. Obviously, we had heard the rumors and speculation leading up to the trade deadline. And then when you look at the Broncos' situation in cap space and financially after the season, it was going to be really hard to keep Bradley Chubb. And you look at what he ended up signing for in Miami, over $20 million per year. I'm sure the Broncos value Bradley Chubb a lot sort of in that area and would maybe want to do a deal with like that. But they also know they have other areas they need to fill. And I think we kind of saw the writing on the wall, right? Like they go out, they get Randy Gregory last year, sign him to a cheaper deal than what they would have gotten Bradley Chubb. They move Baron Browning outside. They draft Nick Bonito. Like they feel very confident about that spot. I know a couple of those guys I mentioned, Browning and Gregory, are hurt right now, so it doesn't look as good right now. But in terms of trading Bradley, I think it was a move that had to be made. And in my opinion, it was a win-win for both Miami and the Broncos. Like Miami clearly needed some pass rushers. They had the draft capital to do it, and now the Broncos get their draft capital, and they have the space now to sign other guys. I know Draymond Jones has been brought up. That's one that could possibly fill that spot.
He's been playing great this season.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. So I think it wasn't a huge surprise. And then you talked about Chase Edmonds and Jacob Martin. Obviously, Jacob Martin, local guy. I think that was a good trade. He's had a really successful season so far this year. Veteran guy. He can help that outside linebacker group a little bit. And then Chase Edmonds, it's just a weird running back room, right? Like you've got
looks completely different than it did at the beginning.
Exactly.
Of the season.
You've got Latavius Murray, Melvin Gordon, obviously, Marlon Mack, and now Chase Edmonds. And it's going to be interesting to see how do they use him, because he's a little bit different pace than, say, Latavius Murray, who's a bigger back, Melvin Gordon, like that. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see how they use him.
Well, the team's heading into Week 10, 3-5. Coming off their bye. George, how would you really assess the first half of the season here? I don't think any of us really imagined they would be 3-5 at this point in the year.
Yeah, well, I think it's disappointing for sure, right? I mean, I think that the expectation coming into the season was this was going to be a playoff football team. And I still think that it's a team that the roster is probably good enough to get there. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are down on the coaching staff. I still am giving them some time here because I think that they're trying to figure things out. Right. And I think you also look at, 4 of the 5 losses are single-digit score games that they could have
close games.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that, a few plays here, a few plays there, you're looking at a 5-3 team and the narrative's totally different. So it's definitely been disappointing, especially in the offensive side of the ball. I think they're last in the league in points per game, maybe second to last. I can't remember where the Colts are, but Russell Wilson hasn't maybe played up to expectations. I know he's been banged up. So I would say it's disappointing, but it does feel like, coming off of a win in London off the bye week, we heard from Justin Simmons yesterday, they feel like they can still turn things around. And if they can, then maybe you can salvage this season.
Yeah, we heard from Coach Hackett on Monday. Just talking about the first half of the season, they said they did a lot of self-scouting over the bye week and said one thing on offense they've specifically looked at and want to improve on is just on third down. George, for you looking at this offense, what's one thing really specifically you want to see them improve upon and focus on the second half of the season?
Well, it sounds really easy and simple, but it's just scoring more points, right? I think that obviously third down has been a big issue, and a large part of that is it's because they're not getting any yards on first and second down, right? They're not able to run the ball. I think the offensive line has been a major issue, and we also found out today Lloyd Cushenberry's going on the injured reserve, so there's another. I think every single position now somebody has sat out on the offensive line, so that obviously hurts that. But that's what I want to see is them be better on first and second down, because then they'll be better on third down. Because right now they're facing 3rd and 8 instead of 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2. Those sorts of situations, and that'll obviously help you move the ball. And then just getting in the end zone. I mean, last week I think we saw some improvement. They were 3 for 3 in the red zone. First time this season, I think they were 100% in the red zone. That's what you want to see. If they can start doing those sorts of things, then I think we're going to see them score more points, obviously, in the red zone. But, even Russell Wilson, I was looking at his stats the other day, his completion percentage is at 58%, which is the lowest of his career. If you can get that up, I think that obviously you'll see them moving the ball a lot more. So I want to see those certain statistics go up. And maybe that doesn't result in wins and losses. I know you want to talk about that too, the second half of the season. But you just want to see small improvements that say, okay, this thing is heading
in the right direction.
Right. Even if this team doesn't, finish the season 6-3 in the last 9 games, if you go 4-5, 5-4, and you're starting to score some points, you're playing really good football teams at the end. So I think that's what you want to see if you're a Broncos fan.
For sure. You mentioned the second half of the season. We heard from Coach Hackett. He said on Monday that they're playing it like it's a brand new season for them. George, for you, kind of what do you want to see in the second half? You mentioned the playoffs a little bit earlier. Do you think that's still a possibility here for this team? I know they need to go on a run to make that happen.
Well, it's always a possibility, right?
Yeah.
I think that I looked it up a while back, but I think it was like 8 teams since 1990 that started 2-5 have made the playoffs. I believe the Eagles were the last team to do it last year. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
And according to 538.com, that's really good about playoff predictions. They have an 8% chance, which is really low. But it's
not zero.
You're right. It's not zero. So they still have a chance. But I think I look at the schedule, and the issue, though, when I say can they make the playoffs is they've got to go to the Titans this week.
Second half.
They've got to go to the Ravens. They still got the Chiefs twice, which I think the Chiefs might be the best team in football right now. So the second half of the schedule is pretty difficult, but anything's possible, right?
That's true.
And I just want to see the offense improve because I think even though they lost Bradley Chubb, even though they've been a little bit banged up on that side of the ball on defense, I think they're going to continue to play at a high level. And so you want to see them finish some of these close games, right? I mentioned earlier that 4 of their 5 losses are single score games. Well, this last week, in London, they showed us they can finally finish a game, right? I know it was against a bad Jaguars team, but they went down the field when they needed to. They scored points, and the defense got the stop with the interception by K'Wan Williams. So if you can do that a few more times in these last few games, then who knows what happens? Because I do think there are some games too. You look at the Panthers, the Cardinals, the Raiders. The Raiders. Oof. People want to complain about the Broncos. The Raiders might be the biggest mess in the NFL. So there are some games also on the schedule that should be winnable. And so if you win those, and then maybe you win a couple other close ones, maybe you finish out 5-4 or 6-3 in the last 9 games, and you sneak into the playoffs. Because I think that's a real possibility.
I think so too. Hope is not lost yet, Broncos fans. Well, George, appreciate your time so much on the podcast. I really loved you joining me here.
Thanks for having me, Cindy. It was a blast. I expect to be on again
I'll have
this
you on
season before you have on the other media members, because we all know I'm going to be the best guest you had.
You got it. You said it right here, so now I have to do it.
Exactly.
We also heard from new Broncos running back Chase Edmonds and outside linebacker Jacob Martin yesterday. Edmonds discusses how getting traded during the bye week was helpful, and Martin talked about the similarities between his former defense and Denver's.
I was telling people that definitely helping towards getting traded towards the bye. It was, helped me so much just to get things handled back in Florida. And first, obviously, just learn the playbook. The verbiage is kind of similar to what I was running in Miami, especially in the run game. So that's not too bad. I got to already dive into the pass game and kind of what we're trying to do against Tennessee. So I feel like I'll be up to speed by Sunday.
That's the funny thing about the NFL, characters are the same, So I find, especially on the defensive side of the football, D-lines are funny guys, DBs are, competitive guys and things like that. But the similarities is the cohesiveness of the unit, how everyone's bought in to one belief, to one standard. And that's what I'm happy to be joining another great defense in this league.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in today and every day. The team will be back at practice tomorrow, so make sure to meet me right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for another episode. I'll see you all then.